Howdy. And good morning, everybody. So excited to be here this morning. That first panel was awesome, and I'm excited to be able to lead our second group up here today. As a small business and consumer lender for over 20 years and having a personal history with my family on small businesses, it is exciting to be a part of this and to help get some of this information out to you small business owners and future entrepreneurs. Alan and I were talking just a second ago. He said he wished that he knew about these types of resources 5 years ago when he was getting started. So we are excited to be able to bring this to all of you. I have, like I said, personally, my father went into business many years ago, and as we've talked about restaurants, that can be a very difficult thing. He actually failed with his first restaurant, and then learned again, and then came back and learned from some of those pitfalls. So hopefully we can help y'all today and give you some of that information to maybe help you succeed where some others have failed and point that out to you. So I do want to give each of our panelists here an opportunity to introduce themselves, tell you their story, and then we'll get to some of those questions. So we'll start right here with you and get everybody going.
Okay, well, good morning, and thank you again for having me. My name is Jasmine Espy, and I'm currently the director for the Prairie View A&M Small Business Development Center. You heard from Jim earlier. We do similar roles, just serve different counties. Prior to this particular role, I was a business owner. I owned an Arby's franchise and also a staffing firm entity. The staffing firm was somewhat regional. I had a Denver operation in Houston, and the Arby's was located in a smaller town east of Denver and Aurora, Colorado. Loving this job, loving giving back and supporting small businesses.
All right, so I'm Kevin Crenshaw. We have Impact Group Marketing is a 7-year-old agency. My business partner, Becky Chumley, and I started that kind of out of a necessity for small and medium businesses here in the Bryan College Station market that were really struggling with needing someone to quarterback marketing and advertising in their businesses. And so we've had the opportunity to live and grow here in Bryan College Station. We love supporting our local economy, and we love supporting small and medium business and entrepreneurs.
Hello, I'm Alan Schulmeyer, executive chef and chief bottle washer of Grill Starting Hot Dogs. I've been in business for about 4.5 years, and my story is definitely one of faith. I was teaching. I think I had finished about 12 years of teaching in the public school system, and I was experiencing some pretty serious health problems, and I could tell that I was not going to be able to continue much longer. So I took a break from teaching and got on some good medicine. I'm fine now, and went from job to job, and all through teaching I had been doing some side work in the auto parts business. So I went back to that, and I was standing at my counter one Saturday morning, and I was thinking, where are you going to be in 5 years? That eternal question, right? And the answer was, I'm going to be standing right here. This piece of concrete at this counter, same people coming in. I can't move up, I can't move sideways. So I started looking for options. I was thinking, well, what about it's a lot of introspective thinking. So I wanted to figure out something that I could really do, because I really believe that everybody is entitled to at least a second version of yourself, if not even a third. So I wanted to think about, what is Alan 2.0 going to look like? So I did a lot of thinking on it, and I knew that I really enjoyed cooking food and making people happy. One of the favorite things I like to make is boiled crawfish. And I have learned from the best. I learned from my wife's dad. He took me through an apprenticeship program to learn how to do this the right way. And when I bring those crawfish out and people take the first bite and there's dead silence, that's when I know. They don't need to tell me a word. That's the highest compliment that I could ever get. So I thought, well, how can I transfer that into this food truck business? So food trucks are $80,000 and $90,000. You know, it's like, I don't know about that. Plus, I don't know anything about running a food truck. So I did a lot of research online. And to get my foot in the door with the mobile food industry, it kept coming back to hot dogs. So I went to the SBDC. I'm a product of their work. Thank you. They got me started. It is a long list of things you have to do to launch your business, but you have to chip away at it. You have to do your due diligence. You cannot give up. You cannot give in. You just have to keep going and get it started. Just, little by little, you can get it going. So let's see. So I where was I? I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So I was watching Sunday Morning. I don't know if you ever watched Sunday Morning on CBS. They had a segment about Hot Dog University. So I decided this is the only hands-on training that I could ever find to how to run a hot dog cart. So I went to Chicago. It was about a 1-week class, and I got out of there. Oh man, I was fired up. I was ready. I'm ready. I want to do this. And I lost my nerve because I wasn't ready to take the leap. I was like, what am I going to do for insurance? What am I going to do for health care? What am I going to do? I don't know. So I held out a little bit longer, and I really prayed on this one. I really prayed on it for like a month. And I'm like, God, if this is what you want me to do, you're going to have to open some doors. So I kept on doing more and more research. And I want to tell you, if you want to earn a small fortune in a business you don't know a lot about, start with a large one. Because you really can lose a lot of money real fast if you don't know what you're doing. So after I did all those extra research entries, I was at a function at the Museum of the American GI. Does everybody know where that is? South Highway 6. Okay, in March every year they give it's called the Living History Weekend. And there will be thousands of people there. You know, you can ride in a tank, you can fly a helicopter, all kinds of stuff. I was there with my godson, and there's this guy there selling hot dogs. And I mean, this guy was raking it in, okay? So finally he was able to take a little break, and I walked over to him. I said, hey, listen, I'm interested in getting in the business. He stopped what he was doing, took a breath, looked me straight in the eye and said, I have an extra hot dog cart I need to sell.
Wow.
Who has an extra hot dog cart in this world? That's some divine intervention right there, okay? So I went up to Waco. He showed me how to run it. We did a little one-day deal and picked up the hot dog cart, dragged it back to Navasota. And from that moment to this, doors have consistently been open for me. And that is God's grace. He has had his hand on this business from the very first day. When I needed help, it was there. When I needed help with bookkeeping, I got it. When I needed legal advice, I got it. So everything has just been, it's a new day every day. But I want to encourage you one thing. Please do not get too happy or too sad too quickly, because every day is a new day. And every day is similar and every day is different. So the last thing is ask good questions. When you're learning the business or learning the trade, or I'm still asking questions, because smart people ask great questions and get really good answers. So just keep learning, and you deserve success.
All right, thank you very much for that. We'll come back over here to Ms. Jasmine with the first question here is, what are the most important factors to consider when starting a business?
Okay. Um, I think there's got to be that desire to do something different. Run your own business, maybe have some control around your time and your talent. Certainly, those are key. I think also knowing your style. I think we heard this earlier in the presentation or the panel before. What's your level of interest? How do you operate? Is it the type business that you would want to pursue? A lot of times we see that individuals who have a certain skill or a talent in a corporate job, they'll transition into something else. But there are also great examples of individuals that aren't able to use their passion or their interest on the job, and they can pursue that as well. The other piece, I think, is being prepared to plan. Planning is very important when you have a business. It doesn't just start at the beginning. It's a constant evolution and process as you enter, as you begin to sustain that business and grow the business. There's always an element of having some business planning. Financial capabilities, both at a startup level and also being bankable and having access to capital going forward. There'll be many situations where that will come up, and so just being prepared to understand how important that is at the beginning and all through the life cycle of that business is going to be essential.
And then back to Kevin and Alan, we'll go with this one, but then Ms. Jasmine, you can join as well. There's obviously a lot of things that go into starting the business, but what would you say there are three key things that to keep in mind, which is what are you selling, where will you be selling it, and whom will you be selling it to? Why would, and both of y'all start with Kevin, why would you think that those are really important?
Yeah, I mean, so I think as the marketer on the panel, the first thing that I think of when you ask that question is you have to have a customer. This business, your business, only works if you are making money. It is a living, breathing entity that exists only if it's making profit. So you need to know that there is a market for whatever product or service that you're selling out there. So a lot of people go towards entrepreneurship. We can certainly respect the passion. You have an interest. You have something that you want to bring to the world. But if there's nobody that's willing to buy it, or there's nobody that's willing to buy it at what you're willing to sell it for, it's not a business. So I think that going towards those three, having something to sell, knowing who you're going to sell it to and how that's going to work, those are core tenets of any business. So specifically with our marketing business, when we sit down with clients, we see a lot of those passions, I'm sure, just like clients that are sitting down with the bank, but we have to realize those into real world terms and say, this is what it's going to cost to take this product to market. This is what you're going to make. Is that going to work? So.
All right, so I think what we're talking about is finding your target market, and that is definitely very key because you don't want to waste any time, energy, or money on anything else. Just figure out, this is what I do, figure out what people want and give it to them, and then dazzle them over and over and over until they keep coming back for more. That's what works for me.
Mark, let me just ask you this question. When you talk about the target market, do you go even deeper to identify who your buyer profile is? Because you can have a segment or a target, but how specific do you suggest someone learn that buyer profile?
So one of the really interesting things about small business marketing and taking companies that are either non-existent or are just in conception is that we don't have a lot of that information. And this is where your advisors, they talked about getting advisors. It'd be great to have a marketer as an advisor, because what we've done in the last 7 years is we've developed personas based on other businesses that we've worked on. So when you come in and sit down, you may not know what that buyer persona is. We might have some really good guesses at it, but somebody that has a lot of experience can tell you these are places that this has really worked before. You might have demographics, female, male, you might have age ranges, you might have income levels, you might have associated interests, and all of those things can be really beneficial. When you're starting out, you have the opportunity to build a massive amount of equity in your small business by just understanding that buyer persona and going out and using tools. The internet is great for us. It's one of the places that we believe is the most important place to be marketing early on. Google and Google Ads and looking at giant audiences can help you narrow those down, and then you're building equity in your business by saying, this is who the buyer persona is. That's a great thing to take to a bank. That's a great thing to be able to come in with quantitative numbers and say, hey, look, these search terms are really working, or these Facebook groups are really working. I know who my buyer persona is. I know how to get to them.
We're seeing a lot of that, existing customers or businesses wanting to really drill down, be more specific in the targeting, and understanding how to really breathe life into the data, so to speak.
And back to you for a second, Ms. Jasmine. Both Jim and Nancy talked about having a business plan and what goes into that business plan, but that was more directed towards the financing aspect of it. What should a entrepreneur, small business look at as far as the success of what their business is going to be and what that business plan has to look like beyond financing, but again, success to selling to customers or whatever that market's going to be for them?
I think one of the biggest benefits of putting together a business plan is being able to take your vision. You can articulate it, verbalize it, but being able to put it to paper kind of gives it a whole different look and feel. It's also an opportunity to really know and learn your business, your industry, and your numbers. You're so much more prepared when you're sitting across the table from a lender or others having gone through the exercise yourself. It's almost like when you're in school, you can kind of cram it in or you can really study it in. And there are many examples that I could cite between business owners that have either bought a business plan or done sort of that quick and dirty look and feel versus those that really know the numbers. They don't stumble because they've actually gone through the exercise to develop it. The other good thing about it is once you put it to paper, it then becomes your dashboard. How you begin to use those metrics, those numbers to go back and make some assessments about your performance. Recently, I had a client, we spent about a year, so it's not, as you said, it's not necessarily something that's gonna happen overnight, particularly if you're working as well. So pacing yourself is important, but through that plan, she had identified, her buyers and her core business, and once she launched, she realized that it was a little bit different in terms of those buyers coming in. But when she went back and looked at her research and the information, her core product and service was absolutely what was needed. She just needed to broaden her market. So she was able to go back, reflect, and have some validation. And seriously, when you're out launching, you're gonna need those PowerPoints, those anchors, because it gets tough. Those first couple of weeks or that first month when you're not getting the results, going back and reflecting, kind of honing in on that, gives you a place to launch instead of starting all over again.
Yeah, as part of your business plan, the financials, again, are probably one of the most important because, again, profit is the ultimate goal. But going through and looking at what does my 1 year from today look like can be really beneficial. It can help you with family, your spouse, and say, this is what my time looks like a year from now. This is what our lives look like a year from now. This is what time commitments I'm willing to put in. And when you have those expectations set, then your employees, your spouse, your family, once those expectations are set, then everybody's easier. It's more comfortable for them to get there. If you leave those things out, and then the next thing you know, you're doing 5 in the morning until 11 at night, you're going to find a lot of friction, and those personal friction and those friction with your employees is going to make things a lot harder. So as part of the business plan, not only your finances, but what does my time commitment look like? How do we solve some of these other problems? What do our lives look like a year from now can be a really beneficial part of your plan.
I don't have much to add to that, except you do need to have a what I call a CEO day. My CEO day is on Mondays. I do not sell any hot dogs on Mondays unless it's a special event, because that's the day I keep up with all my bookkeeping, paperwork, all of it, so I can keep my finger on the pulse of the business and make sure we're not buying too much, not make sure our inventory is getting rotated, everything is clean, properly sanitized, and everything. So that's my day, and that's built into the work week. Throughout the week, it's pretty predictable, but I've had some events that went very long into the evening and into the next day. But, that's the way it goes. You just roll with it.
And I'll open this question out to the entire panel, kind of going along with what we've been saying, that when Rusty asked the group when we first started, I think about 75% of the room are already in business. So what would you suggest to people as maybe adjustments to that initial business plan as they continue to go through year 2, 3, 4, all the way up and continuing on?
For us, in our company, we look back every quarter. So if you're already in business, looking back to your previous quarter, whether that's just something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet, and map out, what did we do in business? Where did it come from? What were our costs? And where are we most profitable? That can give you a lot of guidance as to what needs to be shifted in that business plan for that next quarter. So looking back and looking forward are probably one of the biggest things you can do to help make goals. And then just start with your SMART goals. Figure out what am I going to do in this next quarter, pick 2 or 3 and chase those. And if you do that, you will become incrementally better by quarter, and you can grow your business that way. So
I would say pay attention to the news, industry information, triggers that you might only think about in terms of your personal life, but connect the dots to the business. Get ahead of it. Think about, when they're talking about inflation and supply chain issues, drill down and determine what kind of impact that might have on your business and when. Understand how, conversations around crypto, conversations around a digital wallet, what does that really mean for your business? So be open, stay curious like you were when you were starting the business. Keep that mindset.
I would concur with my colleagues about making sure you look back over the previous quarter, but my business is quite a bit different because it's very seasonal. I have about 9 months of good sales. So the idea is to make as much money as possible as fast as you can so you can live through the winter. And I'm being funny, but that is kind of the way it works. We are very, very busy in the spring and summer and fall, and we try to chase every nickel in the winter. But that's part of the game. You have to be flexible, and sometimes you have to know when to say no. I've had to turn some people down because they wanted me to do some things that were just not financially viable for me. So I hate to disappoint folks, but I have a business to run.
And if there are any questions from the audience, please don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask. To our business owners, but anyone up here, what are the 3 things that a business owner or an entrepreneur needs to do on a daily basis? We've talked about kind of some longer range things, but how about on a daily basis?
I think one that I would contribute to, recently asked by the business development over at A&M, you have to always be conscious of risk reward. That's one of the things that we think about constantly is when presented with a problem, look at what the time commitment or the dollar commitment to fixing that problem is, and then determine whether or not the reward is worth it. Too often we see business owners that are chasing some major problem that they foresee and that they are passionate about, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. In the end, it's not going to have a significant effect on their profit. So if you go through when you're being challenged or when you're looking at problems, look at the risk reward and say, this is something that I can get good return on my investment of time or money on or not. And if they're not, as much as you might be passionate about it, try to let it go.
Okay. I have one helper with my business, so if you want to talk about a small business, I can't get any smaller. But we start our day with prayer every day, and it's just not a long one. It's not very, not very in depth, but we do that every day, and we also look out for each other for safety. That's primary in any kind of food industry because there's sharp stuff, there's hot things. You have to watch out for that, and then procedures. We have set in stone procedures for our safety. For the food service industry, you have to have these things that you cannot deviate from. So you're checking food temperatures all the time. You're making sure your fire extinguisher is in the right place. All these things, they're non-negotiable. So that's the structure of our day.
Okay, you want to go ahead and ask a question and then I can comment later? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, go ahead while
All
he's
right.
getting over there.
Okay, so quickly, I would say check you as a business owner. Check your intuition. Sometimes you've got that nagging little thing in the back of your mind that says, I need to do that. I should have finished my bookkeeping. Check that, because sometimes those are subtle warnings for you to really work it through before it becomes a bigger issue or a crisis or a missed opportunity. And so it's important with you at the helm, sometimes you're by yourself, check you, do that, and be true to you so that you can do the kind of leading and managing that business that you're called to do.
What are some considerations to keep in mind when you're thinking of expanding your business, hiring on new labor, if any?
So as we've grown and hired more employees, really trying to find cultural fit is almost as much as the experience that a person brings to our organization. So when we sit down and interview, not only are we looking for, do you have what it takes to be able to do the job, but are you a good culture fit for our organization? Because we are more casual, we have fun, we yell, we run around the office. It is not a staunch atmosphere. And if that's something that, an interviewee comes in and is presenting themselves ready for a corporate job, and I want to, sit at my desk and I want to have formal meetings, it's not a good culture fit for us. We know they're not going to shine. And so looking for culture fit is, in our opinion, just as important. So we have hired many. Many have left us and move on to other jobs. As they progress with our organization, one of the hardest things I think for us in small business to do is realize that almost always there's a bigger fish that's looking to come and acquire our talent. And so just in this past year, it's been a giant struggle for us. We keep bringing people from the basics to the advanced, and then they keep getting picked off and going to bigger organizations. But we have to lean into that, as that's our role. Our role with these people is to get them from the basics to the advanced, to grow with them, to leverage them in that time period, and then move them on to the wider world. And hopefully some of them will come back. One of them has. So that's just one of the things that we've seen as we've grown, hiring and fitting people into our organization.
I'd run the numbers also. Make sure you're going to get the return on the investment for the spend, right? So look at the cost. Is it a hire that's going to fulfill a particular customer need or position you differently in the market? I totally agree with you, because the fit makes a huge difference. A bad hire can be very costly and put you behind and very much at risk in the market. But once you figure out that you want to do that and you have all of that, it's very important to use a financial assessment in that hire, not only in terms of just the cost, but what's going to be the return on that investment. So you want to make sure you're building out both sides of that equation. It's not just a cost, but what's the upside of it as well.
That's more what I'm interested in. I don't understand the financial assistance component, because you have to consider the operational component of a small shop where you yourself as a principal are taking. you might consider as the principal operator of your business that you would primarily your time is in operations, where you might take a step back in terms of management. Now, in training a new person, how do you affect a cost-benefit analysis is more my question, and maybe we could talk offline if that's too
Okay,
in-depth.
yeah, we can. But one of the ways you can do it is if you're hiring somebody in for a position, right, and you know that you're going to pay them X amount of dollars, and let's say they're being hired in for a sales position, then you want to look at what is the revenue potential for them to bring in and the probability of that success based on their experience, their skills. So you may not have an absolute, but you want to have some thought around that so you're really clear about what they are being hired to do. And that also helps you form the basis of your performance metrics, because you absolutely want to have a kind of a compensation structure where they're paid for performance to the degree that you can. If it's not necessarily monetarily, you've got to have some other things there. It's a different game for small businesses. I think it's important for us to keep that, regardless of whether it's one employee or several.
Okay, so this might not be exactly related, but I have very little experience with hiring folks. Once in a while, I'll need some help for a day or 2 days or something like that. So I have to be very selective on who gets this job, and I have been very lucky so far. But there's people that I know, and they have to go through the legal food training online and get their certificate. Okay, but if we're at an event and we need to sell 1,000 hot dogs, okay, it's safety, speed, and accuracy. And sometimes if the speed is not correct, I do get a little bit bossy, and I'll tell them that, and we'll deal with your hurt feelings later. But we got to get this food out, and I mean right now. So they got to be able to take that. So you got to have a little bit of thick skin, and then we'll joke about it later on, and it's going to be fine. So that's my little briefing that I give them every time.
I think one of the other things, too, that I would add, something that I didn't realize when we started our business, and something that I've come to kind of grow into, is when you're hiring employees, if you're at that point, especially full-time employees, you are significantly investing in their lives. Your life becomes invested in their life, and their life becomes invested in yours. So as much as you hear them talk about, I want to be in a family, and this is a family atmosphere in a small business, it couldn't be more true. They have kids that are sick. They have doctor visits. They have all these things, and initially you might be irritated because your cost-benefit analysis might show that you need them for X number of hours to turn X number of widgets out to make X number of dollars. But you have to keep that human component there. You have to realize just how much your lives are tied together, and that can additionally ramp up the stress of when you're trying to decide what happens next. It significantly affects lives and spouses and children and all those things. So something I didn't really realize 7 years ago that's become more true every day.
We have a question from the audience.
Yeah, you guys mentioned the stress. What are some ways that you guys, over the course of your career, have handled the stress and anxiety of growing your business?
I think for me, I have always enjoyed whatever hobby that comes around the turn. So one of the things that we teach in our business, if you haven't looked into it, Clifton Strengths is a great way to try to help give you language to identify what your innate talents are. And my number one innate talent is as a learner. I like to go and find the new information, absorb it, think about it, put it back out there, teach somebody about it. And so that might be going and getting on a motorcycle and riding and spending my time in the evening doing that. Decompression time, after the workday, keeping that work-life balance in check. You have to have time for yourself. You are not your business. You are still a human. You are still have relationships, and you have all of these other things that you have to handle. So remember that there must be that part of life for you. Great to go out and make a bunch of money, but if you wasted 10 years of your life and you got nothing out of it in that time, maybe that's not the best investment. So what else have you done for stress?
For stress, well, I pray a lot. And if you come by the hot dog cart, you might hear me singing because I love to sing. And I'm not gonna sing for you right now because I'm not warmed up. But sorry to disappoint, but that is part of the experience when you come by. You get a meal and a show. So that's something that we do.
I love that because it shows that you're you. You're authentically who you are, and I think that's important when you're running a business, not to try and be somebody else or emulate other things. You want to emulate processes and tasks and things like that, but stay true to your authentic self. So that's great. The thing that I would say is running a staffing business, I learned very quickly that I could lose a client on the back of somebody else. And I don't mean that necessarily literally, but my employees in a temp capacity really did emulate my brand. And if they broke it, it could break me. So one of the ways that I tried to de-stress when I was in that type of a situation was to be more mindful around managing contingencies and fallout, really having sort of a backup plan, overstaffing by 30% during holidays when I knew fallout would be better. So I did some things within the business to help mitigate some of the key stressor points that I was dealing with. And I think having gone through COVID and seen a lot of breakage and loss with businesses, the one thing we learned is to have some backup plans, be prepared, like we are with disasters. So that was important. And then I agree with everybody else, finding time to pursue your passion and things that help you on a personal level.
And we'll go to the back over here.
Okay. Earlier, you were talking about weighing the cost of hiring or expanding, gaining new employees. I wanted to highlight a resource here with Workforce Solutions Brazos Valley that we actually have funds available to provide on-the-job training. And what that involves is that you would hire the individual as an employer, you would hire the individual, and Workforce Solutions can pay up to 50% of that salary. So that's a cost savings that allows you to bring on an extra employee. We also have a subsidized work experience program where we could actually fund 100% of someone's salary for up to 8 weeks, giving you an opportunity to try that individual out, and then if you like them, you can retain them. So those are some things that we wanted to know, let these small business owners in the area know that this is a resource that is available to you.
And y'all have a table here in the room, correct? The Workforce Commission?
Yes, we
Okay,
do.
just wanted to make sure, so everybody will be able to find them either during a network session after this or at the end of the event today.
Hi, so I work currently a 40-hour-a-week job with A&M, and I've had my small business for 2 to 3 years already. So my question is, when would be a good time, if there is any, to fully transition over to that small business full-time and quit my 40-hour-a-week job?
That's a difficult question, and that's a difficult question because there's a lot of things that wrap into it. The first question is, do you want to do your small business as a full-time career? A lot of times we have hobbies and we have things that we enjoy, but if you had to subsist on that, would you get the same joy out of it? So that's one of the first questions I would ask, is just make sure that's the direction you want to go. The second would be putting those things in place, those contingency plans, to make sure that that's going to work. So if that's setting aside enough money to switch over, hey, I need 12 months of income to make this work, make sure that you have that sitting in savings and that you have a plan to take out exactly $3,000 a month, and that's what I'm going to live on, and I'm going to progress to growing my business. But there's just so many different things. I would say my dad told me that I would never be ready to have a child financially. So I don't know that there's ever a financial time where you would say, man, I just have all the resources and this is just going to be an easy slide. It's always going to be a lot of work, but when you're ready to pull that trigger, make sure you have your ducks in a row.
I agree with that. You know, it depends on how risk averse you are too, but don't be afraid to take that leap. There are many situations where people have made the move and then they've gone back, you know, so you're not going to really know until you try it. And, you know, some people have taken vacation, like 2 or 3 weeks, and just worked solely on that, you know, to sort of test it out a little bit if you can. Certainly if you're getting customer demand that's causing you to have to put more hours into the job and you're seeing more revenue return, that's certainly a time to start taking a look at making that move and then again planning for it.
I would say if you can, sit down with the SBDC counselor and let her or him really get into your finances and your situation, and the both of you to figure out a time. But I will tell you this, once you get out there, you're not gonna wanna go back. Because I can tell you from personal experience, there is no way I could go back to being an employee. There's no way, and I'll tell you this really happened, but it was kind of funny. So I went, not too long ago, I needed a part for my truck, and I went back to the same auto parts store that I was working before I started my own business, and there was a help wanted sign out there. I said, hey, tell me, you know, I see you got a help wanted sign. Okay, so here's what I can do for you. I'm gonna need about $25 to $50 an hour, but I only wanna work about 4 hours a day on a flexible schedule. I'll make up my own schedule. No weekends, no holidays, and I don't take direction very well either. So when can I start? And they said, let me know when you find that job. I was like, I already have that job. I couldn't be happier. So it's the best thing I ever did for myself. It really is. It's the best thing. I'm so happy every day. And it's been great. But I had to do it at the right time of my life. I was turning 50. I know I don't look it, but I was turning 50, and I was like, man, if I don't try this now, I'm never gonna do it, and I'm gonna regret it. So even if I fail, I'm gonna say I tried it, and even if I fail, I'll probably gotta try it again. So you might stumble a little bit, but even when you're stumbling, you're still moving forward.
Real quick, as we get ready to wrap up, what would you say are 1 or 2 myths that you found yourself preparing for that you ended up kind of either costing you time or money? Did I stump y'all with that one?
Yeah.
I think people think this is just gonna be so easy. It's not what I would call easy. But there's a lot of things that I do now that at a regular job I would be like begrudgingly doing because I have to do it, you know. But now every little thing that I do affects my profitability. Every dish that I wash affects my profitability. So you look at it through a different set of eyes. So I guess the myth would be that you can just walk into a business for yourself and just automatically make money. Well, you might not right away. You might even take a loss the first year like I did. But it grew, and it's still growing, and next year is going to be even better. So that's what I know.
I think one of the myths that I came in thinking that there was some end game, that there was some, if we could just make $1 million a year, that's it. Then we're done and we could stop and this is gonna be great and then we'll just live these easy lives. And it just never has ever happened. You know, there's always a next turn. There's always a next growth opportunity. Even when we were making $1 million a year, all of a sudden we needed 2 more people because we wanted to make $1.5 million a year to get the profitability back where it was. And then we chased that. So there's not really an end game, I would say. You're just going to keep growing and doing what you love and keep pushing that forward. The market will dictate so much of what you do and how much you make and where you end up, that if you enjoy the work, if you have the passion, then go do that and just plan on it being a long-term plan.
I think my experience has been that when you start your business, you assign yourself this title as a founder and an owner and the president. And then somewhere in our mindset, we, drill up what our responsibilities and our role will be. Well, changes. I became the janitor, bookkeeper, help desk, IT consultant, recruiter. So it's a myth in a sense that, you're an owner and a founder, but actually it really did help me to be open and acquire those skills because I was better at understanding how the business needed to operate around those systems. I was better at explaining and measuring people hired into those positions because I had performed it myself. So the myth is, you're a business owner, but you're going to wear many, many hats, literally.
Everyone, please join me in thanking Jasmine and Kevin and Alan for their time today.